Hey everybody, welcome back to Video MSO Terraconecting series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and of course it's been some time since we talked about the Sega Saturn, and we have new core updates because SRG 320 updated the core again with patch notes on GitHub to the games that have been improved and some games that have started working again from regression issues in previous cores. So we're going to be testing a bunch of games, including some of your requests. I got along to getting some of those into this video. Before you get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. It definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But right off the top, Asuka 120 has been a game that I've tested previously on the channel. The last time we took a look at it, it had some really bad graphical glitches when you actually got into the gameplay. Now, with the patch notes on GitHub and the new core, this seems to be functioning exactly as you would expect this game to. The FMV is running well, and it does have a lot of story in a fighting game. Probably one of the most fighting game stories I've seen on the Saturn. As I actually get into the game here, you're going to see all of the background, all of the sprites, the shadows, everything seem to be rendering and animating like they would on real hardware. Last time I took a look at this game, the sprites I believe has some corruption in them, and I don't think there were any shadows whatsoever, but it's been some months since we've tested this, probably back in October of last year. And this is another fun, awesome 2D fighting game for the Sega Saturn, and one that a lot of people have been asking about, so I'm sure there were some GitHub tickets open for this game, and SRG 320 decided to patch it up, because from all of the animation you'll see it looks good. Now right there is still a little bit of a sprite issue. There were some vertical lines through the female sprite. That seems to crop up every once in a while. It's a very intermittent bug, but you can see it here and there, but I think that's the only time in the entire capture that actually did happen. So there does still need to be a tiny bit of work done to make Asuka 120 exactly like real hardware, but for the most part it's like 99% of the way there, and it might just be down to that one sprite as well, because I don't believe I saw it in any of the other character captures here. And if you notice anything at all, leave me a comment down below, because I depend on your guys' eyesight along with mine. But as far as the performance of the game is concerned, there's no slowdown. Everything is performing as far as the frame rate is concerned like you would expect it to, compared to some of the 3D fighters which still can exhibit some slowdown every once in a while, like Dead or Alive or Fighters Mega Mix. So this is another one that people wanted to see retested, and one that wasn't working that great, but now outside of those couple vertical lines and that sprite breakup on certain characters, I can't really detect anything that would make me say this game isn't running anything other than expected, whether you play it as a one-player game or a two-player game. But I would highly recommend you bring a friend, because the AI in this game definitely predicts almost everything you do, especially at higher difficulty levels, so it can be hard to actually see the end of the game if you're doing a one-player match. But if you want to start playing it today, there's a few lines and one sprite, but other than that, seems to be good to go. Now, a lot of you have been asking for a retest of Ogre Battle, and I totally get it. I absolutely love these sort of tactical RPGs. And I don't remember the last time we took a look at this, but I remember it was definitely not something that I would recommend you start playing. Now, with these long games, until somebody tells you online in one of the spreadsheets that they can be completed, I can never recommend you spend the time to try to beat them, because these are very long games and you might end up into a crash or a hard lock 10, 15, 20 hours into the experience. But as far as the early game is concerned, all of the graphics, all of the performance, all of the music, this is just 100% what I would expect to see out of this game. Now, of course, I haven't played this game in probably like a year and a half or two, so I might be noticing something tiny. Tell me down below if you see something, but I cannot tell if this is not real Sega Saturn hardware. I'd be hard-pressed to be able to know the difference. And again, if there's other games you want to see retested, leave me a comment down below and I'll try to get to them. But I absolutely love the isometric viewpoint of this game. I love all of the pixel art in the background. It is just such a pretty game to look at on the Sega Saturn, and all of the graphics here are just working as I would expect. All of that nice kind of shine to the different areas you can move, all of the sprites, their animations, the background layer. This is just a pretty game no matter how you look at it. And here on the current Sega Saturn core, it is just working so wonderfully. Last time I think I tested this, it probably froze right when you got into the game. It's been that long, but I can tell you right now, this is just working how you would expect. And the sound and soundtrack are working great on the core as well. So go ahead and listen for 40 seconds, and I'll come back and show you more games that just work. Just an absolutely outstanding soundtrack there, so if you want to play Ogre Battle, just go ahead and start it. Just be aware that it might freeze in 10 hours or so. Now moving over to NBA Jam, this is another one that was listed as having improvements, and the last time we took a look at this game, it was an absolute mess. The sprites were just not where they needed to be, and while it has seen improvements, there's definitely still some graphical glitches here and there, so there must be some work in the underlying code that needs to be taken care of to get these sprites to 100% present themselves correctly. It's interesting, in Asuka 120, you had some lines going through the vertical axis of one of the characters, and in NBA Jam you have sprite breakup in the horizontal axis of these sprites. I wonder why that is, that one is going one way and one that's going the other. Just kind of something that I was very curious about, but definitely the performance on this one has improved a lot, because last time I took a look at this game, it's not something that I would classify as playable, but today, outside of these graphical issues, you can totally get a match in an NBA Jam, and this is probably one of the last traditional fun NBA Jams before the franchise changed hands and it got less exciting. And it's one of those things, this is all impressive work. Even if there are glitches, it's not like we're looking at them and trying to find them to point at the core and say it's not doing the right thing. This is awesome that it even in and of itself works, and SRG 320 has been updating this thing so regularly now. It is fun to be able to get these games with some issues so we can go back and retest them in the future to show you when the performance has improved and when the graphics have improved. Because for the most part on all of these 2D games, if they do have any issues, it's just down to a slight graphical corruption, but the performance is still there. This is NBA Jam running at the proper speed that NBA Jam should run at, and of course that's always a good time. And don't forget, if you don't pick John Stockton, you're not doing it right. But honestly, it's just so much fun to see these games that didn't used to work the last time we tested them start working now, because again, there's probably still a couple hundred games that won't boot on the core if I had to guess, but there's such a vast library for the Saturn, there's probably 1,000 games that you haven't even seen tested on these videos. So again, if there's something I've never checked out before, tell me down below. Now moving over to Grandia, this has gotten a recent update. I showed this probably 14-15 days ago, and in this intro the back wall area had a lot of polygon breakup and a lot of glitching. It would basically phase in and out of existence. Now that is completely gone, it is 100% patched up, which is awesome to see, because I absolutely love the graphical style of Grandia. I love this isometric viewpoint in the world, the ability to spin the world around and even go into a full 3D overworld map from above and kind of see the entire way that the engine draws it, from the FMV all the way through to the gameplay. This is much better. There's still going to be a little tiny bit of sprite corruption. Depending on what angle you're looking at the sprite at, it can have a tendency to slightly break up, but this has seen some vast improvements as well. And honestly, I think this might be my favorite 3D Sega Saturn game. The way the camera rotates, the way that everything's in 3D outside of the characters, this just has such an interesting visual flair to it. Every time I'm looking at this game run, I am reminded at how well it's actually held up. I think, in my opinion at least, this is the game in 3D on the Saturn that's held up better than any other in the visual department. But watch those sprites there. Every once in a while, depending on how you turn the camera, like right here, you're going to see those vertical lines in the sprite. That's basically the same thing that happened in Asuka 120, except in a different game. So it must be using some graphical mode of VDP1 or VDP2 that isn't fully implemented or has a slight bug. But as we go inside and the sprites aren't really moving that much, it completely goes away. And the sound is improved on this one as well. I'm just going to give you a 20-second sample, listen, but I still have more games to show you, so come right back. Just such a great soundtrack, and again, the audio quality there is excellent. So outside of these slight lines, there's really nothing in Grandia that seems to be a problem. But again, I can't tell you enough, these long RPGs, unless you get confirmation from multiple people that you can beat them, I don't know that it's the time to start playing them on the Sega Saturn Core today. Start with shorter games and kind of work your way up. Now, another game that was recently improved and mentioned on the GitHub patch notes is Discworld. If you like Terry Pratchett, you're going to absolutely love this game. If you like point-and-click adventure games, you're absolutely going to love this game. If you don't like either, then it's probably not going to be for you, but I still can't recommend it enough because it has a great sense of humor, and I absolutely love point-and-click adventure games, and I think they should all be played by everybody. But that's because I grew up with this genre, and it is still one of my favorites of all time, even if it doesn't make for the most exciting video footage, because a lot of times you are just clicking on the screen. But I know the last time I retested this game. I didn't even include it in a video because I couldn't get it to boot whatsoever. Now that's obviously vastly improved, and I never even told you about it, but there's tons of games in the earlier days of the Core that I tried to boot, they didn't work, they weren't some of them Saturn's most popular games, and I never got around to taking a look at it. And big thanks to Andy D again for helping with these captures. He's the one playing Discworld, and I know he's a big Terry Pratchett fan. But honestly, these games have such a great sense of humor, and I love seeing the artwork here, and honestly, point-and-click adventure games really do translate well over two console controls. Sure, it's not a keyboard and mouse, and those are always going to be the best way to play things, but on a controller, it really isn't that bad of an experience whatsoever. And I do own this both as a Sega Saturn copy as well as the original PlayStation 1 long box. I got this game back in the day, fell in love with it, and it's been in my collection ever since. But this just seems to be doing exactly what's expected of it. All of the voice lines are here, all of the music is here, all of the graphics and art are here. I didn't notice a single thing in this entire capture that makes it look like there is a problem. So this might be what you would classify as an, and I'm doing air quotes, you just can't see it, perfect game right now, at least in this footage. Absolutely nothing here makes me think that this is running on MiSTer FPGA versus real Sega Saturn hardware, and that's where we're getting with some of these games. An experience that seems exactly like real hardware. And I love that this treasure chest follows you around like a dog. Like I said, if you've never played this game before and you do like point-and-click adventure games, definitely check it out. I think you're going to absolutely love it and remember it fondly after you get your first playthrough in. And it's one of those things that was on the GitHub patch notes, which meant I had an excuse to talk about a point-and-click adventure game on a MiSTer FPGA video. But that's the current situation with the current Sega Saturn Core, and again, if you want to see other games retested or tested for the first time, leave me a comment down below. I'm trying to get to each and every one of them, and I do keep a list, but if you haven't seen your game tested yet, I didn't forget about you. I just need to keep these videos to a shorter run time. But short of that, next time there's a Sega Saturn Core out, I will definitely do an update video, and I'll have videos throughout the weekend as well, and if a new Core releases, I'm sure I will talk about it that day. But go play some Sega Saturn, enjoy your weekend. If you watch the Super Bowl, enjoy that as well, or maybe just play some football games on Saturn. Bye-bye.